So a private placement, it depends. Okay, you can have the very simple private placement where you already have an identified group of potential accredited investors that you're going to approach, and they know your business and they're going to buy into the business. And these are usually sophisticated individuals, and usually they will do their own due diligence of the company, and it will usually be extensive. So extensive looking at the financials, extensive talking with the management, and looking at the industry. Outside that, if you're actually going to propose the sale of your company to people you don't know, you've been introduced to, or they're accredited investors, usually we put together what we call a private placement memorandum. All right, the PPM, the private placement memorandum, and what that does is it's supposed to make all of the disclosures that you need to make to comply with the law. So in other words, it's a sales tool first, but it can't be misleading. So it can't fail to omit material information, and it can't be misleading, right? And it can be misleading if you leave something out that's bad. So typically, you'll see in the private placement memorandum, we have all the state law disclosures up front, which basically tells, depending on what state you're in, that the stuff that's applicable to you. And then we have the federal disclosure, which tells you, this has not been registered with the SEC, it's not been approved by the SEC, that type of stuff. Any restrictions on the transfer of the stock, because usually they're subject to restrictions on transfer. And then follows with the risk factors, risk factors specific to the industry. There are a lot of generic risk factors out there. Those are kind of frowned on, the generic ones. They like them to, what's specific about this business that people need to be on line with. One that you see a lot of it, if you invest money in this business, you will lose it all. It's jokingly, essentially what you're telling people. But they are the, like you see on prescription drugs, may cause death. So, and then usually it goes into a management discussion where the management tells you the background of the company and the industry, the background of the company, their prospects for the company, how they feel about the company, gives you the biographical information on the people who run the company, the officers, directors, key employees, and then usually, something along the lines of anything about their intellectual property, key stuff that an investor needs to consider, and usually the financials are part of the package, right? These are our financials, and the financials need to be, accurate. All of this information needs to be accurate, and then typically attached is the form, subscription agreement. Here's all the information, and then here are the legal documents that we would want you to sign in the event that you agree to invest in the company on our terms. Now, typically, the investor, if it's a big investor, a sophisticated investor, is going to negotiate those documents. But sometimes, they don't. So, if it's not a terribly sophisticated investor, or if he likes the investment opportunity, and they'll sign on the terms the company proposes. But usually they're negotiated a little bit. But that tends to be a PPM. Again, it's a nice thick packet of paper. You want to control who gets a copy of that. So usually, sometimes you'll number the PPMs and you'll record who you give it to, because you don't really want that to get out into the wild. You don't want your competitors to get it, so there usually be a confidentiality agreement that goes along with it. And you just want to control it and who gets it.